That is awesome. So, thank you for joining, everyone. That being said, I would love to introduce you to someone that I've just met recently, but who I am madly excited about because she is answering my prayers, which are to bring more research, more evidence into this world. So, it is my profound pleasure to introduce you to Jelena Zikic, who is a professor at York University right there in Toronto. And I have to say, she is a rare breed, that rare academic who's not just focused on the ivory tower, but on sharing what she's learned with job seekers and career coaches around the world. So, Helena, thank you so much for being so generous and sharing your expertise today. Would love to get to know you a little bit better. So, tell us a bit about your research and your background.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy, for that warm welcome. I am one of those academics that really enjoys sharing beyond academia. I know we don't have enough of that, so it is really special pleasure for me to be part of this webinar and to share with your audience. I hope I can be useful. In fact, I do everything about career transitions. That is me, all kinds of transitions of different populations. And I got really interested in this topic back in my undergraduate years when I was actually in the psychology program. So my background is in psych. And I know that on a scale of high stressors in our life, job loss is one of the higher ones. And so when I got into business school, into management, I started thinking about how do people cope with such a stressful transition, such a stressful event, such as job loss. So my actually first big research project, my dissertation was on job loss as a blessing in disguise. So I kind of found the silver lining behind this negative event. And so I continued looking in many different populations, and maybe some of you in the audience today are also dealing with either job loss, changing industry, changing roles. Maybe there's educational transition. Any of these changes are also considered what we call career shocks, right? So they really do um, try our, resilience, and coping is a big part of any of these situations. And through studying different populations, what we find common in all of these transitions has to do with intensity. So, how intense is the transition? There are some dimensions that we study. How long does it take? Some are quick, some take a very long time. Are the triggers coming from you internally because you want to make a change in your career, or are they coming from outside? As an example, return to work mandates. I've been talking
Mm,
a lot about this particular topic. It's something else, something outside of you, whether it's your organization or, society has decided, and that impacts you and really throws you into a transition. Is it a planned, unplanned, sudden transition, and so on? We know that every 2 or 3 years we will enter into a transition, sometimes even sooner. But all of these transitions have one thing in common, at least, and that is all of these changes have a lot to do with who we are, with our
mm.
professional identity. And so we'll come back to that throughout our session, but it's just something to keep in mind that it is about who we are.
Yeah. Elena, I'm so glad you called out that part around identity because as a former university-based coach myself, one of
Mhm.
the things I realized after I got to know the students I was coaching is so often what seemed like it was about resumes and applicant tracking systems was really about the ego and the person behind the resume and the cover letter and how it was all wrapped up in that identity. So I'm excited to dig into all of that today. That being said, as you know, this is not going to be your typical webinar. Because Helena is so focused on action-based learning, she wants to make sure that you get a chance to take action, whether you're a coach or a job seeker or a career changer. So first things first, please, please, please find the chat button in Zoom, click that chat button, and then come over here and send us your favorite emoji, your favorite GIF, just to get us started. Let us know that you are alive and well on your side of the screen. And I see some great emojis coming in from Cade. I see some awesome GIFs coming in. So thank you so much, Hannah and Kendra and everyone. Okay, this is how we're going to be going back and forth. So feel free to use that chat throughout. Now, to raise the stakes and get even more exciting, I would like you next to find the hand raise button in Zoom. Smash that hand raise button because by doing that, you'll be entering yourself into an opportunity later on to number one, get free coaching from Helena, a world class expert on these topics, and number two, win a free LinkedIn profile makeover from yours truly. I'm happy to offer that to you if you're a job seeker or to a friend or family member if you're a coach. So, bottom line, feel free to get all these goodies just by being brave in a few short moments. And then finally, most importantly, the best fuel, the best currency for this conversation is your questions. So feel free to ask questions in the chat at any point. I'm going to be keeping track of those for Helena, and I'll tee them up for her when the moment is right. Okay, with all that said, let's start out with a pop quiz. And again, you can answer right in the chat. Do you believe that networking success, however you define that, is mainly about having a large number of contacts? You know, the fabled 500 plus on your LinkedIn profile. Is that true or false? Okay, Helena, I am seeing so many falses here. Sherry says false, Susan says false, Candor says false. What's your take on this one, Helena?
Okay, so I'm glad the audience is absolutely answering the right way to the pop quiz. So, whenever we are entering a career transition, job change of any type, one of the things that we're told you need to network. And absolutely true. Having a large number of contacts is not a bad thing for sure, but it's not everything. Really, the secret to networking is something what I call quality networking. And that has to do with how do we go about maintaining and building our network. You know, there's the word maintaining. So it's not just about gathering contacts. It is how do we keep in touch and how do we activate them when we are networking. So quality networking, I think, is a way to reframe a little bit an activity and a process that a lot of us are actually not that keen on doing. And, I'm sure in the audience today we have people that when we say networking, you have all these negative connotations. And there's a research that's been done at University of Toronto, actually, where one of my colleagues has tested networkings. How do we feel about it? And she found that people actually feel dirty when we mention networking. So this is just sort of something to keep in mind. So I just want to dismantle some of the basic, I guess, myths about networking, and some of you may be very familiar with this, but I'll share a few anyway. So one of the things that networking is not a process or behavior that we engage in only when we are searching for work. So, I'm now in a transition. Let's do a lot of this, whether I like it or not. In fact, it is best when networking is continuous, ongoing, when this is something we do, whether we're happy in the career where we are right now in the job or not. So that's the part about maintaining networks that's really critical. I talk to my students a lot about this idea of one-way communication. Is it you networking and just seeking information from others? Definitely not. Networking is best when it is reciprocal. So when we're able to give and take in those conversations. And so many times, especially, in the case of students, they often wonder, but what do I have to offer? I'm junior, I'm just starting out. And this is a big, big point to remember that everybody has a lot to share. And so, a lot about networking, getting better in networking, has to do with knowing yourself. So, going back to that identity, self reflection, we all have a lot to give, whether we're junior or not. Third myth has to do with networking with people in my field. As an example, I teach career human resource professionals, people, leaders, managers. Do they only network with those in their field? Absolutely not. We know from networking research that the more social arenas or social domains that a job seeker or individual has to tap into, the better the outcomes. And this may translate into, chatting with people that are part of your activities, daily activities, whether, you're doing sports, hobbies. If you're a parent, you may be connecting to a lot of other parents. All of these are social domains where we can find connections, conversations. I'm not proposing, go and ask for a job, everybody you meet, but it does have to do with this ability to connect and to communicate with people from different arenas. Also, it's important to understand who are the people that are in your network. Sometimes when I do this exercise in class, we find that we have people who are the same age, same background, same ethnicity. That tells us that our networks are not diverse enough. So, networking broadly. And finally, it's not just about presenting this ideal self to the world. We find that the more authentic we are in the networking process, people remember us more. And so, I'm not saying do not present the best version of yourself, but keep in mind that being yourself also can really help. And, a lot of people in the audience may be mid-career and so on. So they're really networking pros, but I think some of these points are worth sort of remembering. We can go to the next slide.
Yeah. So on the next slide.
And so when we talk about this networking activity more broadly, and quality of networking, I actually like to position it as networking beyond job search. Thinking of networking almost like a hobby, like your side gig. And, I always remember this business case study that we talk a lot about. It's a real person who had networking as a couple of hours a day. So he's sort of like a super, guru networking person. I'm not proposing that you spend a couple of hours a day, but it is something that should be ongoing. Why? One of the reasons is that we actually learn through networking. You learn about other, how people go through their challenges, mistakes, career mistakes. So it's sort of like gaining that wisdom from others. That's one of the reasons why networking should be more than just doing, job search activity. Second is social validation. And here, I mean, just the act of sharing and that reciprocity that I talked about earlier, it actually creates what we call helper's high. It boosts our well-being. It makes us feel good about ourselves being able to help others and to share. And third one is communication skills. We become better at sharing, better at listening. Networking is not always about talking, it's as much about being a really good listener. So the more we do it, we become more authentic speakers. These interactions become more meaningful. In fact, one of the things that we talk a lot about is the link between being good communicator and career success. So that's just something to keep in mind around networking beyond job search.
Okay, this is awesome. We're getting a little love from Jennifer in the chat, Helena. You never know what or who someone else knows. Why not make some friends? Even introverts can do it. I will say I am definitely on the INTJ side of the Myers-Briggs. So I agree with that. It's a skill you can build. Okay, Helena, speaking of building skills, it is now time to put this research into practice. So here's my challenge. If you are out there and you are an introvert or an international student or someone who just feels like networking is your personal kryptonite, let's talk through it with Helena and start to understand, are there ways to actually leverage some of these techniques out there in the real world to overcome some of those challenges and get those access to opportunity? So, if you are willing to give this a shot, all you got to do is raise your hand right inside Zoom, just like we practiced. First person to raise their hand gets the awesome coaching and the free profile makeover. And our first volunteer is going to be Marcella. So, Marcella Mesa, feel free to unmute and then everyone give Marcella tons of love for being our first volunteer. Welcome, Marcella.
Thank you very much. I didn't know I was going to be the first one, but I will be amazed to let me get through. I'm eager to learn every day. That's for me the spice of life, the main
Oh,
spice.
I love that, Marcella. You have come to the exact right place because if learning is your spice of life, Helena is the perfect teacher. So,
Great. I'd be amazed to network with her.
absolutely. So, Marcella, tell us a bit about yourself. Where are you in your own career journey? And then give us a little bit of a taste of your experience with networking. Does it freak you out? Do you enjoy it? And then we'll go from there.
Well, it's an everyday challenge. I would classify myself as an introvert more than an introvert, but nonetheless, I am a career pioneer here in Colombia. I have opened the first ever career center dedicated specifically to career development in Colombia, and I have been pioneering through the last 25 years. And I have reached a lot through networking with people as far as yesterday I was reunited with people from Malaysia, Maldives, Canada, all over Jamaica and others. And all this was possible because of networking. I'm also acquainted to JP Michaels, to Bonnie Alexander in Canada, and I have reached enormous things. And I have and I'm here. I'm from Cali, Colombia, and I'm connecting with you over there in the US or in Canada, wherever you are. And yes, I really love networking this way. And I found you through LinkedIn, your books, and I have been engaging in your seminars so many times and learned so much about you. I'm also a career development instructor, and all these materials, if you see people connecting from Colombia and looking you up, that's because I spread the news all over when I deliver career development class.
Oh
Mm.
my goodness. I love that, Marcella. I have to say, you have traveled the most digital miles to be here, maybe with the exception of our friend from New Zealand. So much love for joining in. That being said,
Great.
Marcella, because you work with students or with job searchers, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges they face with networking?
They, first of all, they are quite shy. For example, if I work a lot with students of vulnerable social, economical,
Hmm.
vulnerable contexts, and most of them are quite shy. For example, if I invite them, oh, you can open your LinkedIn and try to contact your teacher or your tutor of your graduation thesis. Oh no, they would be so shy to do this. Oh, I don't know if I can do this. Maybe he becomes or she becomes angry because I do this. They're so shy, or they really don't know how to do this. Many of them don't even are aware of how to make good use of LinkedIn. Well, I'm not the LinkedIn expert at all. We have great LinkedIn experts over here also, but I show them through everything I have learned from you and from others. Everything I catch up, I right away I try it out and I deliver it to them as soon as I can, and I go through it myself, and then I teach them through. And yes, this is one of the big challenges. And also language is
Mm.
a big barrier, because we have only 8% of adults here in Colombia that speak fluently English.
Ah.
So it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge for international networking. And all the time, since we make an accompaniment from this first semester on in college, we we try to get them to enhance their English skills, because it's so important.
Right.
I'm here because, well,
Yeah,
it's
let's
not. Yes, okay.
this is
If
such a
I
great
can,
setup, and I want to go to Helena here because Helena, I don't think this is a Colombian challenge. This is across the world challenge. Everywhere we look, whether it's Gen Z not wanting to get out there and talk to people, or just anyone saying, "Oh, it feels so cringe-worthy to network." How do you overcome that, Helena?
of course. So, Marcela, gracias and bienvenida. And
Gracias, qué bien que
uh,
hablas español.
uh, yeah, so, one of the things, it sounds like you're doing a lot to help students to become more comfortable. Um, One of the things that I also find with my own students is they're much more comfortable when texting and anything that is not face-to-face communication. And so if you're giving workshops or, having these individuals that you are advising come in, I think doing some sort of like experiments, little mock networking sessions with you, as an example, as a career coach would be really helpful. And really encouraging students in general that networking is something that we become better over time. So, being shy and not speak the language well is a very, very common barrier. But unless we do it, more of it, and with small experiments in a very, comforting setting where everything's safe and they don't really need to approach somebody that, they're not comfortable with. So in these conversations with you, you can do some mock networking kind of Q&A. So that would be
Fantastic.
one tip.
And then, question for you, to our amazing volunteer is, do you attempt to sort of get them out of that comfort zone, trying a mock interview, trying a practice round? Has that ever worked for you in Colombia?
Yes, of course. And as soon as I listened to this recommendation, I remembered the recent situation, even to accompany them through to write a letter, how to write a more formal letter, for example, to a teacher or to address a teacher, and how to overcome, how to polish up, even with the help of AI. And maybe they got access to ChatGPT, but they don't really know how to make the best use of it. So I've got some training from Career Development Institute in London on AI for for career practitioners, and then I make use of that, transfer this immediately to my students, and show them how they can write the basic script and then polish it up with a Gemini and with all those free tools. And there sometimes they're so amazed. Oh, I didn't know you could do this. And yes, of course, I enjoy this enormously.
Fantastic. Elena, before we close up with Marcella, anything else you want to share just in terms of best practices, especially for practitioners? I think there are a lot of folks on the line who say, I
Mhm.
understand networking, I'm a coach, but how do I
Yeah,
take
yeah.
that understanding and put it into a student's brain?
Yeah, I find this idea of moving from just networking for job search to networking as something that helps us to communicate better and to learn from each other. So really making it more of a reciprocal learning opportunity. Um, Maybe a way to demystify this idea that networking, especially for students starting out, is not something they really want to do.
Absolutely.
I
Okay.
see that your,
Yeah.
messages are exploding. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, totally,
I
totally.
can
So
help. A
here's what I
lot
want
of
to do.
good advice and good comments as I'm seeing.
First of all, I want to give crazy love to Marcella for joining in across all those digital miles and being here. Mucho gracias, Marcella. Please drop me a line
Con
on
mucho
LinkedIn.
gusto.
I would
Yes.
love to give you a free profile makeover or even help a student of yours. And then number two, please give love to Marcella, but
Mhm.
also ask your juiciest questions to Helena. And again, the chat is wide open. You can even raise your hand if you prefer to ask live. Whatever you're curious about in terms of the research base and what we know to work really well with networking, it's all wide open. Okay, let's see here. I just want to call out a couple things from the chat, Helena, before we move on.
Sounds good.
Shada says, I love the idea of this change of perspective towards networking. I thought one of the really great things was Jennifer had this great way of framing it. Your best friend in the world was once a stranger to you.
Stranger.
Such a powerful way
Absolutely.
to bust through this idea that we just don't talk to strangers. So I love that. Okay,
Yes, agree.
if I see any questions, I will let you know, Helena. For now, let's ask the next question to our amazing guests, and that is as follows. Do you believe that career transitions, whether you're going from one industry to a new one or a job to a new one, do they require a clear long-term plan from the very beginning? A is true, B is false. What do you think? Come to the chat, true or false? What are you going to say? And once again, Helena, I think folks are onto us a little bit here. I am seeing false from
Absolutely.
Sherry, from Andrea, from Andrew, from Steven. Everyone's saying false. And so, Helena, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I see a few true answers to
That's true.
responses. Yeah. Yes. So one of the big pieces of advice that career coaches would give is plan. And so, you know, come up with a career goal, outline the steps to get there, your strategy, number one, two, three. And that is true. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. But more often than not, in interviewing and talking to a lot of people who are going through career transitions, who are going through change from international students, migrants to career changers, we find that the path is not linear. And this idea that, career self-management models propose is really more about, it's messier. And it's more about, two steps forward, one step backwards. Here, what I'm talking about are these trade-offs in our career decision making. So it's often about give and take, something that I call career sacrifice in my work. Most of the time, people will tell me, I was really lucky to land a job, or I was really lucky to meet, Peter on the train. So luck definitely plays a role. So it's not all about planning, it's trade-offs and luck. Believe it or not, there are actually theories in career studies that incorporate luck and planning. One of them is called planned happenstance, right? So, I just wanted to highlight this idea that sacrifice, career sacrifice, really means giving up something at this current moment in time, perhaps to achieve another goal or something else in the future. So, some of the things that we may be asking ourselves is what might you need to give up right now? Time with your family, something around work-life balance, maybe postponing an educational, going for training of some sorts? Is it about a promotion? Is it about geographic move, something that will impact your career decision making? And so, one of the things that I want to highlight here is that we need to be intentional about these trade-offs. Otherwise, circumstances may decide for us. Or oftentimes people are stuck with what we call career indecision, right? And so just keeping in mind that career decision making is also about giving up, and it's not always about maximizing outcomes. And I think it's not about failure, losing something at the moment for something else in the future. Now, a caveat here is that future is often hard to predict, and there's a lot of uncertainty in just thinking about, how quickly things are changing with AI. We don't know what the labor market will look like, in the next 6 months. But there are things that we're certain about, and then there are things in our context that can give us this sort of idea of what will happen in my own context in the future, and what is it that I can give up now for something else. So just really framing career decision making more of a balancing act of giving up and sometimes, postponing things for the future.
That's awesome. And Helena, you have sparked so many interesting conversations in the chat. I want to call out a couple things here. First of all, I loved what Steven said because I think there are some people who are big fans of planning. I think planning does have a place. But
Yeah.
Steven says the plan basically has to keep growing as you grow, checking in to see are you hitting your milestones, you need to change anything versus you make that plan once, and as Mike Tyson said, life punches you in the face. So I love what Steven called out. Um, I also thought this was really important from what Kim mentioned. And this goes back to the networking conversation. Kim
Hmm.
says that her students avoid happenstance like the plague. And I feel like there's this flight with Gen Z to certainty. We live in this uncertain, crazy world. Everyone wants their career to be orderly and easy to understand. And it sounds like you're saying you have to embrace a little bit of that uncertainty to really fully expose yourself to opportunity.
Sometimes it's also experience with failure, experience with jobs that didn't work out that will help us to have that more balanced approach.
Awesome. Okay, so with all of that said, again, let's put this from theory into practice in the form of someone's career, especially someone who's facing a tough career decision. So maybe you're a job seeker out there. Maybe you're considering two different pathways, or two different cities, or two different industries, whatever it is. If you need a little help, a little structure getting through some of the curveballs the world is throwing at you, be sure to raise your hand in Zoom and win the very next profile makeover. And our next volunteer is going to be Lisa. So, Lisa, feel free to unmute your line, and then everyone give tons of love to Lisa right in the chat. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I hear you great. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. And Lisa, where are you calling from?
From Chicago.
All right. How's it looking there, snow and temperature wise?
Snow is almost fully melted. We know that nothing is certain because it's still just February, but it's been a little bit warmer than the long stretch. So I'm going to try to be grateful and keep layering.
All right. Well, good news for Helena in Toronto. Hopefully that nice warmer weather blows east and brings good tidings along with it. That being
Love
said,
it.
Lisa, tell us a bit about yourself. Are you a career coach, a job seeker? Where are you in this crazy world of
Um,
ours?
yeah, I am. I'm sort of straddling two worlds. I am a job seeker. However, I've been working on this sort of freelance consulting opportunity that has the potential to be very exciting and potentially very rewarding in a lot of different ways. And it just was not going it was a lot of effort and not getting the returns. I'm excited to say that in the last 10 days or so, gotten some interest, and so we are moving toward. Anyway, that's looking promising.
Congratulations.
That's
That's awesome.
thank thank you. Very happy about that. But I feel like for my sanity and for good karma and letting the universe know I'm open, I am trying to also balance that with reaching out for and looking for good jobs that would be a good fit. I will say that the thing that is holding me back is I feel like I have some mental things holding me back, and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm older. I am
Yeah.
older. I don't feel like I am, but I am. And I have a background that is I feel like it's diverse and it's broad. And while I think in some ways that's good, it's also challenging. Like someone's like, well, what do you really do?
Right. They
And
want to put you in a box, put a label on you.
uh-huh,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Well, I think you are the perfect person to kind of represent this career crossroads, Lisa,
Oh
because I
my
think there
God.
are,
Okay.
well, there's so many folks out there, especially in this age of uncertainty, who say, hey, do I go with that W-2 route, just a typical job? Do I try
Hmm.
to build my own financial freedom by freelancing, consulting? So,
Hmm.
Helena, you've probably heard these kind of challenges from your own students in Toronto. Are there
Yeah.
certain structures, certain ways of thinking that Lisa can bring to start to think through some of these sacrifices?
Yes, absolutely. So, Lisa, the fact that you have these two opportunities or kind of two pathways, regular
Hmm.
job search versus the freelance, this thing that you're trying that sounds like you're excited about,
Yes.
uh, genuinely, but it's not an easy road, right?
Right.
Um, to my mind, what's really important for you right now is to understand what is it that you enjoy the most about these two options. So, imagining yourself in that full-time job, the job search that you're doing, and the kinds of opportunities that you think you may be able to get with your profile,
Hmm.
versus this freelance opportunity that's been capturing your attention and time for a while.
Hmm.
Which one is really more you, more energizing? And also think realistically, in terms
Yeah.
of can I afford to
Right.
just be on the left and not the right side?
Right. Hmm.
Maybe one of the things to also think about is what is it that I can give up easily?
Hmm.
So can I pursue the freelance opportunity part-time Can I dedicate certain amount of time every week or every day to that particular engagement? And then share the rest of the day for regular job search, networking, meeting people, etc.
Mhm.
And how easy is it for you to get a job at the moment? How active is your network? So look a little bit at your previous jobs, people that you've had really good connection to, and things that made you successful in the past. And start slowly. It sounds like there's a lot to consider. Job search is a full-time job, as we know,
Mhm.
yet your freelance career is for sure taking a lot of your time and effort.
Yeah.
So, can you do one at a smaller scale and really sort of divide your time between that active job search? But most of all, I think figure out what makes you happiest and where you find most um, passion and curiosity. And then how can you balance the needs, realistically? I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of my
No,
first.
it is really helpful. And I think one of the things that is tricky for me is like to have the discipline or I think structure is a better word, structure of being like, okay, this is, today is the day that this is what how my day is carved up, and I have to be structured and then follow that structure. And I think is my nature is to be a little bit more like, oh, does someone need this, and so protecting um my boundary would be a good way,
Absolutely.
an
And
important way of making, protecting and making that supported.
look, Lisa, we find that self-discipline is one of the, key indicators of success in anything we try. A quick thing that comes to mind, have you ever tried Pomodoro technique?
Ah,
I've heard of it. I don't think I can
Just
say
as a
I've
way
tried
of
it.
like focusing, our attention 25 minutes at a time on one activity, 5-minute break, and so on. It's a really just simple way, simple technique of managing time and focus.
I will look into that more. I know I've heard of it, and now I'm seeing, yeah, that would
Jeremy's
be,
already out there
I
sharing the
can,
that's right.
Pomodoro.
yeah. Thank you. I will look into that for sure. That might be a good start for
And
me.
and look, give yourself a break in a sense of you are managing two very, very difficult things and competing demands in terms of your career. And this is never easy.
Yeah.
And so, one at a time, structuring time in terms of your schedule, but also understanding where do you find most, what energizes you and what do you like doing the most.
Yeah.
And let me
Thank
just
you,
throw out
Elena.
one last thought, Lisa, before we close, which is
Yeah.
this is the beauty of networking. And this is sort of like networking on steroids here because you have 80 people to learn from, which is I actually had this very old-fashioned mentality about that exact challenge you talked about. 10 years ago, I was working at a job. I wanted to try my hand in entrepreneurship, and I thought either you were all in or all out. And so I
Hmm.
quit my job. I literally like left the CEO stunned. I went off and started my own business, and it completely flopped. I came back and was like groveling for my job back a couple months later. It was only over time that I realized we live in a much more complicated world in some ways than our ancestors. And it's totally fine to contain dualities, right? To be a
Hmm.
W-2 employee at the same
Hmm.
time that you're launching a business on the side. And for me, that was ultimately what worked much more effectively was giving myself that balance and a chance to sort of play them off each other versus having to pick a lane. So do
And
keep your options open a little bit.
just a quick comment, Jeremy. It really made me think of a very recent webinar I did more on the academic side, but I talk a lot about career paradoxes and these situations in life when two things are competing for our attention. They're contradicting, but they exist at the same time. And so, this idea of creating a mindset where two competing activities, or these career paradoxes, are always going to exist at the same time together. And so, creating a mindset where you're accepting that as opposed to feeling like, oh, I have to do either one or the other.
Mhm, mhm.
So
Okay,
both and is what we call a best solution to these competing issues.
I
Yeah.
love that. Okay,
Thank you both.
Lisa,
Appreciate it.
thank you for being brave. Thank you for
Thank you,
being
Lisa.
bold. Thank you for being generous, most of all, and sharing your story. Please do reach out to me on LinkedIn. I would love to work on a makeover, whether it's for your business, for your functional expertise, or even for both in one single profile. So let's make it happen.
Amazing. Thank you both. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. Sending warm thoughts our way to Chicago. Okay, that
Appreciate
being
it.
said, everyone give lots of love to Lisa, who was so kind. And then, Helena, we have two super juicy questions coming in that kind of bridges the divide about navigating uncertainty, doing networking in a way that feels right. I want to start with a great question from Melissa. When you reach out to network with people and you're looking for a position, how do you avoid it becoming transactional or awkward or one-sided? I think so often, like, we know that idea of, oh, build the network before you need it, but sometimes we need that network right now. We need that job right now. And it feels like as soon as we get matched up with someone on the inside, we find ourselves making our elevator pitch and it gets really awkward really fast. Any ways to deal with that, Helena?
Yeah, so one piece of advice I can give in this situation is really understand and research the context of the networking situation. So if you know in advance the people that you're talking to, learn a little bit about them from LinkedIn, learn a bit about the organization so that your approach to the conversation, first of all, shows that you're well informed, but also that any time that the conversation is awkward, you may be able to interject with some of these other pieces of information that you've learned about the company, the job, the environment in which they function. So being really well prepared for networking and being able to bring these pieces of information as part of that communication so that it is a bit reciprocal.
That's awesome. And then one last question from Sneha. And I got to give Sneha so much love because she is actually a brand new Wash U grad. So just starting her career. And I know that when I was 21, there was no way I would have been showing up to any of these webinars or being bold enough to ask questions. But she says she's been reflecting on the networking conversations she's had. So first of all, big props, Sneha, for actually doing it. And then she says, sometimes when I speak with different professionals, I find myself feeling less knowledgeable. Instead of fully engaging in the conversation, I catch myself thinking about what the next best question should be to make the interaction meaningful. How do you balance being present and genuinely curious while also wanting to make a strong impression? And Helena, as soon as I read that, I was like, that's me. That's been me my entire life. I'm always jumping ahead and not being in the present the way that I should. How do you deal with that, Helena?
Experience, more conversations, more engagements in these types of communication. The more we do it, better we get at it. And you are much better over time at calming down yourself, your brain, your thoughts, and really focusing on that person and on that particular conversation that you're having. And the more you do it, the more confident you become. So some of the questions that you're having has to do with also your confidence in approaching people. So practice, do it in different situations, and it doesn't have to be looking for work. It can be networking, chatting with somebody at the gym, chatting with somebody in the line. All of those are very similar situations that test you in the same way.
I
So
love
the
that.
more you do it, better you get at it, and confidence comes with time.
Oh, so build that muscle. It's not something that has to happen overnight, but start to work on it now. I love that. Okay, let's go to our final pop quiz. I want to close out the session with a bang here. So here's the big one. I know we've been talking so much online and in career conversations about imposter syndrome and confidence. Do you feel like confidence is a prerequisite before you can take the plunge into a new career? True or false? I love what Charles said. He didn't just say false, he said totally false, 100%. So, Helena, what's your take here?
Okay, our audience knows all of the answers to our
Yes.
pop quizzes, Jeremy. So confidence is one of those things that we would always say confidence comes first. So, from talking to a lot of people going through transitions, going through career change, we can switch to the next
Yep.
slide.
Here we go.
Yeah. We learned through our research that there are actually, in addition to the C of confidence, there are three more actions, three more C's. So we call this career adaptability, which translates into four C's. And so these are kind of the ingredients, okay? The magic mix. It does include confidence, but not just confidence. And I just want to go briefly over the four C's that we see as part of any transition. First is control. So we have to feel that we have some control over the career situation that we're facing. And I understand many of you will say, well, I feel out of control. Things are just happening around me. However, there are things that each one of us can take control of. The skills that you're developing, the mindset that you're creating around your career challenge. So, really thinking about taking ownership of that moment in your career. Second one, and probably one of my favorite, and one that I find really, really helps, and that is curiosity, which in our careers research translates into career exploration. Remember that study from the beginning that I mentioned about job loss as a blessing in disguise? What helped these people to find better jobs was actually curiosity and exploration of options. And so once they were out of work, they had a chance to look into things that they may enjoy more or that may be more suitable to them. So exploring options, it's almost like being a researcher at the time of your transition. And that doesn't mean you're not applying for different jobs. It means learning a little bit more. And I can't think of a better time than now with, ChatGPT and AI in general. Some of these curiosity questions can easily be asked and answered through AI. But really keeping an open mind. What else can I do? How about that? Have I ever, can I imagine myself doing X, Y, Z job, etc. Confidence, definitely. And as Shayna was saying, it's not always easy. It is trial and error. Confidence about approaching people, about applying for jobs, it's needed in any mix. But think about this. We found in one of our studies that the more career exploration people did, more job clarity they created. And job search clarity is a prerequisite to confidence. And so the four C's are really interconnected. And maybe on some days you don't feel confident approaching, another person on LinkedIn, doing another networking coffee chat, but maybe that's the day when you are doing the research and learning about opportunities. And the fourth C has to do with concern, career concern. Now, I have to say that all of us on this call have it. So, kind of like check mark for concern because you're here with us. So, control, curiosity, confidence, and concern are the three magic ingredients that help in any career transition and really translate into what we call career adaptability.
That's awesome. So I love this framework, Helena. Let's bring it all together, kind of in a grand finale here. Let's get one last volunteer who's feeling a little stuck. Maybe you're stuck with imposter syndrome. Maybe you're stuck with lots of different choices or lack of perfect information. Whatever it is, let's see if we can figure our way through that to a much better moment. So, to that point, let's start with Rachel Ellman. Rachel, feel free to unmute your line. And then Rachel, come join us for our grand finale. Welcome, Rachel.
Awesome. Thank you so much for hosting this day. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And big thanks to you for joining and to Helena for making this all possible. Rachel, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I graduated from business school in June and I have been
Congrats.
searching for a job since, and it has been really trying, really difficult. I went back to school a little bit later than your average student, and I can't help but feel like that is a little bit being held against me because I keep hearing, oh, well, you're applying for roles that aren't post MBA roles. And I'm like, yeah, well, I also have 15 years work experience. So I don't know if I'm not applying for the right things, or I can't help but feel like I'm not getting through the ATS trackers, but definitely feeling stuck and would love some advice.
Okay, Rachel, first of all, huge congratulations on getting through. I know just getting across the stage is a big deal to begin with. And then number two, you are not alone. Like if you look at what's happening out there in the job market, there are just lots of ultra talented people who feel like that opportunity wall has been erected just overnight. So let's go to our expert here. Helena, I'm sure you're hearing the same things in Toronto that Rachel is seeing. What advice do you have to even get her into that right headspace as she tries to land that next position?
Right. So, wow, so many ways we can approach this. So, Rachel, just a quick question for you. What is one thing that you are finding has been most challenging since June? Is it getting through to interviews? Is it not even getting any response? What we hear a lot is ghosting, no, somebody
All of the
contacts
above.
you, all of the above.
Yeah, a fair amount of ghosting, but not even getting through to screening rounds for recruiters.
Okay. So one of the first things that I would suggest, and I don't know your resume, but I just heard a little bit about your story, is look at that past career, pre-business school. Okay. We're not throwing that out the window. And that is still a big part of who you are. Can you think of people that have been really helpful and that you've interacted well in the past? Pre-business school. Can you get in touch with them? Can you look at the types of roles that they have today that maybe would resonate both in terms of where you want to go, but also just that career conversation? So starting from your strong contacts. And also trying to understand the positions that you're applying for at the moment. Sometimes I find that job seekers are not aiming at the right roles. So maybe rethinking a little bit the strategy in terms of, are these roles fitting with my background? And, age matters, unfortunately, in job search as well, and your prior experience. So, kind of putting all that in a mix. And I have to say that sometimes maybe some sacrifices that you need to make in terms of the types of roles. But as soon as you start getting some interviews, I think that is your best signal that you are moving in the right direction. And not knowing your profile, but one thing that I think would definitely help is working on that career exploration piece. Because now you've got your past career, you've got your new skills from the business school, and you have your future plans and ideal job in mind, right? Think about how do these three fit together and whether there are some roles that maybe you haven't considered yet and that could potentially be another avenue. And definitely not, I know it's not easy, and job search is a full-time job. And so asking yourself also a little bit, are you putting in enough hours? And are you doing enough of that face-to-face meetings as well? So much happens on LinkedIn online, but sometimes it's just nice to meet with those people maybe from some of your jobs in the past, reconnecting and meeting them. Maybe you've done that already, but
Yeah. And I just want
Thank
to
you.
add in my 2 cents, Rachel, are, and Helena, you were an economics major originally, is that right?
no,
Oh, so sorry about that. For some reason, I thought so. Um,
psychology.
Psychology, that's right. I knew it was something in social sciences. I was thinking about, there's this idea in economics called signaling theory. And so much of what we're trying to do when we apply for jobs, Rachel, is we're trying to send these signals. I'm a really good worker. I am a great teammate. I am really passionate about this role in this company. And I think in this age of AI, a lot of those signals are getting lost. Like you could be the world's greatest new MBA grad, but if an employer can't see and believe that signal, then they start to distrust it, even those three little letters next to your name. Versus what I think Helena was talking about at the very beginning with networking is you're sending a signal by the fact that you're getting out there, you're building these relationships that is way more powerful than any AI generated cover letter or any keyword optimized resume. So I know it's frustrating because the answer always comes back to networking, but I do think that signal is more important than ever, especially in this age of distrust. So that's just my 2 cents that I'll add on from the economics perspective. Okay, Rachel?
Thank you so much.
All right, Rachel, please, please, please give me the privilege and honor of getting to work on your profile. Drop me a line, and we will work on those keywords as well as the other stuff just to make it really shine. Okay, everyone, give Rachel tons of love. I know it's a tough world out there right now, but we are definitely not alone. That being said, we are coming down to the final few minutes. And Helena, I've got one great last question to bring it all together. Robert is asking a question, which basically, again, mirrors my own experience. He made a career transition 4 years ago, went down a road that ultimately was not the right road for him. He learned that this was not where he wanted to be. Now he's coming back to his former industry and he's wondering, hey, how can I tell my story in a way that comes across as confident and credible, not someone who's just boomeranging around? And so if you think about everything you've been sharing, Helena, about
Mhm.
networking and certainty and confidence and all these topics, how can Robert navigate this total sort of 180 in his career?
Wow, such a good question. And I'm glad, Jeremy, you said, how can Robert create a story? And by story, we're not talking about something that's not true. We're talking about career narratives. And so, talking about your past, reflecting in the present, we're not asking you to create something that doesn't match, but we're asking you to maybe share what is it that you learned from all of this and how does that all make you better and more ready to go back into that job or industry that you already did. And look, career pathways, journeys are all zigzag, up and down, front and back. And this is the reality. So maybe you are also having an image of everybody having these perfect careers, but that's not true. You are just like many other job seekers. And so going in with that mentality of this is not rare, this happens to people. What did I learn? How did I become better at who I am today? And creating that narrative for yourself, telling that story of who you are today
Oh, I love that. I think that's the
with the
perfect.
four C's.
Yes, the 4 Cs. It was a perfect note to end on. I do actually want to give you two final thoughts. So, first of all, this is the beginning of the conversation, not necessarily the end. Helena is so deep in this world, has gotten, 100 different papers published in this space alone. I would love for you to connect with her on LinkedIn if you're interested. Keep that conversation going. Whether you want to potentially discuss having her give a presentation or chat with you or whatever, Helena is a source of both wisdom and generosity, as you can see. And then, number two, I want to give Helena the last word, which is Helena, tell us about what we can think about as we head into this new year of 2026.
Yeah, so this is just a little quote I wanted to leave everybody with at the end of today's webinar. And, this is about your next job, your next step in your career. It's not about going forward, but it is really about who you are becoming. And this is going back to the beginning of our webinar and the idea of work identity, professional identity being so integral to all of the things we've talked about today. So, kind of reflecting on who you are and how things are changing for you is more important than just the next step. So, reflecting on what does it all mean to you and who you are today.
Beautifully said, Helena. Well, one last time, everyone, can we please give Helena so much love in the chat for absolutely blowing our minds and speaking to our hearts today? And then to everyone out there, to the coaches who are doing incredible work to support your students, to the job seekers who are looking for that next adventure to light your flame, I'm wishing you incredible success in all that comes next. And we can't wait to root you on. So let's keep that conversation going. Have
And
a
thank you,
beautiful,
Jeremy, for inviting me, and to all of you on the call for your courage to ask questions, comment, and take part in this conversation.
thank you so much, everyone.